You've seen it, right? The last-second shot, the photo finish, that impossible comeback. We're always blown away by the physical power. But what if the real secret weapon wasn't in the muscles at all? Today, we're diving into the athlete's mind, that hidden battleground that really truly separates the good from the great.
So what is that secret sauce, that X factor? You might think it's just more practice or raw talent, but the truth is it often comes down to the one thing every single athlete has total control over, their own mind. And that right there is the world of sports psychology.
At its heart, sports psychology is basically the science of mental toughness. It's all about using psychological principles to boost performance, sure, but also to build motivation and protect an athlete's well-being. Think of it like a gym, but for your mind. And it's the key to unlocking what we call peak performance.
All right, so let's start with the biggest opponent every athlete faces: pressure. You know what I'm talking about. The screaming crowds, the high stakes, the weight of everyone's expectations. It's a mental pressure cooker, and how an athlete handles that heat determines everything. This brings us to a really cool idea called the Goldilocks zone. To play well, an athlete needs to be fired up, or aroused. But here's the catch: not too much and not too little. It's all about finding that level of intensity that's just right. If you're too calm, you're unfocused. But if you're too hyped up, you're anxious and you'll make mistakes.
This whole concept is called the inverted U hypothesis. Imagine a graph that looks like an upside-down U. As an athlete's arousal level goes up, so does their performance. That's the climb up the side of the U. But it only works up to an optimal point at the very top. If you push past that peak, any more arousal actually makes your performance get worse. You start sliding down the other side.
Let's look at the two extremes here. On the left, with way too little arousal, an athlete is just bored. They're slow, unfocused. On the right, with way too much, they become anxious, they start to panic, they're completely overwhelmed. That sweet spot right in the middle, that's where those amazing clutch performances happen.
So the inverted U theory suggests this nice, gradual decline. But is that always what happens in real life? I mean, what about those moments when an athlete doesn't just slip, they completely and totally fall apart?
Well, that's where something called catastrophe theory comes in. It argues that when an athlete's cognitive anxiety, and that's just a fancy term for worry and negative thoughts, gets really high, performance doesn't just decline. It can suddenly and dramatically drop off a cliff. It's not a gentle slide down the other side of that U. It is a total, complete crash. So, if pressure is the big problem, what's the solution? Well, it's all about building a mental toolkit. And the first, and maybe the most critical tool in that kit, is the ability to harness your own attention and focus.
Okay, so check this out. This is Nideffer's model of attention, and it breaks focus down into 4 different styles. For example, a quarterback needs a broad external focus to see the whole field, teammates, opponents, everything. A marathon runner, though, they use a broad internal focus to check in on their body, their breathing, their thoughts. Then you have an archer who needs a super narrow external focus locked on that one single target. And a gymnast might use a narrow internal focus to mentally rehearse a specific move or feeling. The truly elite athletes, they can switch between these styles in an instant.
Okay, so once you can control your focus, you've got to power it, right? And that power source is motivation. But here's the thing, not all motivation is created equal. Let's dig into what really fuels an athlete's drive.
Generally, motivation comes in 2 main flavors. You've got intrinsic motivation, which is that fire that comes from within. You know, the love of the game, the personal satisfaction of just getting better. And then there's extrinsic motivation, which is all about the external rewards, trophies, money, fame. And while both can work, sports psychologists have found that it's that intrinsic motivation, that love of the game, that's the real key to long-term sustainable success.
And that drive, it's all built on a foundation of needs, which Maslow's hierarchy explains perfectly. An athlete can't possibly strive for excellence, that's self-actualization at the very top, if their basic needs aren't being met. I mean, you need food, water, and rest. You need safe equipment and facilities. You need to feel like you belong with your team, and you need to feel respected and valued. Each step has to be solid before you can build the next one.
So what happens when an athlete really masters all of this? When they can handle pressure, control their focus, and fuel their motivation? Well, that's when they can achieve a state that is pretty much the holy grail of performance. A state of mind we simply call the zone.
This is the ideal performance state, often called flow. And it's that almost magical feeling where everything just clicks. Time seems to slow down, the hoop looks bigger, and every single move feels effortless and perfect.
It's a state of complete absorption where an athlete is playing at their absolute, undeniable peak.
So what does it actually feel like to be in the zone? Well, it's a mix of all these key ingredients: an absolutely unshakable focus, sky-high self-confidence, and total control over your emotions. Your attention is perfect, your energy is positive, and you can even use mental imagery to see success before it even happens. This is it. This is the absolute peak of the mental game.
So when you put it all together, managing pressure, harnessing focus, fueling motivation, and then achieving that flow state, you start to realize that sports aren't just a physical contest. They are the ultimate mind game. And if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Physical talent can only take an athlete so far. True greatness is unlocked only when the mind is trained just as hard, if not harder, than the body. Mental mastery isn't just a nice little add-on to physical skill. It's the very foundation it's all built on.
And that leaves us with one final thought. You know, these principles don't just apply to professional athletes. We all face our own high-pressure situations, a huge presentation at work, a difficult conversation, a major deadline. So the real question is, what is your championship final, and how are you going to prepare your mind to win it?